Let's go back to one of the top stories where Basic Education Minister Siviwe Gwagube will today release the overall Matric results for the class of 2025. The minister will also highlight top-performing learners and provinces at an event in Randburg. The results will indicate whether the 87% pass rate from the previous year actually improved and whether the Free State retains its sport as the best performing province. We're now joined by Plaatje University Faculty of Education Dean, Professor Boitumelo Diale. Prof, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for your time. A moment of celebration, but also a moment of nervousness for some. What's going through your mind as we await the announcements by the Minister of Basic Education?
Thank you, Putvuyo, and thank you for really inviting me to, for having me today. Yes, it is an exciting time, but also a nerve-breaking time. We all are anxiously waiting as higher education, as parents, as learners themselves, as teachers, as to what is going to really pan out in the 2025 class and the results that we are awaiting.
But what do academics like you sort of look out for at a time like this?
I think at a time like this, there are two things, and I think we always conflate the two, but it is good. For instance, today we're going to hear the results, but we are going to hear the percentage. We're all looking at saying, has the percentage increased or decreased, which province is higher than the other. But the reality of the Matric results is beyond the percentage rate. You know, we need to actually look at it more beyond the data itself of saying how many percentage, but solely focus on what matters more. What is the quality of that percentage rate? What is the quality of the passes that we have? How many of these students have achieved really bachelor's, and how many of them really do well in subjects that we consider as scarce or scarce skill subjects in the country, or subjects that students really struggle with, like your math, science, and languages, so physical science. So it is purely beyond just a pure pass percentage. So it is important for us to look at saying, when we look at the results, we dissect per subject, per context.
But who then gets to not only keep an eye, but gets to make sure that, in fact, when these students graduate from high school and then get to university, that their choice of courses to do at university is, in fact, aligned to the needs of their country, but also is good for them to make sure that they actually register for courses that are the future. And I'm saying this in the context of a raging debate about the work of SETAs and whether, in fact, what is happening there is aligned to the needs of the country, but also in other words, it sort of future-proofs these children.
You are asking a very pertinent question, Putvuyo, of who is responsible. I think it should really be a fallacy for us to point at one particular person or one particular organization to say they are responsible. This is actually a multi-pronged responsibility. Yes, the Department of Education has the responsibility. The schools have responsibility. As society, we have responsibility. The companies, private sector, has responsibility, because actually they are the employers. They know what they need. They need to be informing the sector what they need. But also higher education has the responsibility to see do we offer what the private sector needs? Do we produce students that are employable and that are work-proof, that can be able to stand not only the South African context of the world of work, but the global world of work. So it is a multi-pronged, and I'm happy that to bring up the issue of SETAs, because the idea of SETAs when they were established was a really beautiful idea, but I am at this stage, I'm one of those, if I have to be critical, to say, I am not sure if we do what we intended to do. You know, the plan was good, but as to whether the reality on the ground is good. But another important aspect that we really overlook, and it is critical, let us go back and think, besides the many other aspects of life orientation, why it was introduced after post-1994. One of the reasons, or one of the key outcomes of life orientation or areas, is career guidance. But the question is, does that happen in school? I can tell you for free that it doesn't happen as effective as it is. The mere fact that we don't train our teachers enough who are at school in terms of making sure that they ensure that children choose careers that are future related, that are future oriented, and that the world of work needs, shows us that we still have a gap. So in terms of careers and the world of work and career development in our schools, we still have a lot to do. We still have a lot to do. Good for you.
In fact, I mean, the background to that was, and I'm glad you sort of expressed a view as well on it. I mean, a week ago, I listened to someone who was very much involved in the evolution of when sitters were first established, was lamenting the fact that these sitters are, in fact, not doing what they were set out, what they were meant to do when the whole idea was conceptualized. And furthermore, he was actually saying that the private sector is extremely frustrated that these sitters and your TVET colleges in particular are in fact not really enough. In other words, whatever they are doing is not actually aligned to both the needs of the country but also the future of the children that they are meant to train, which is quite incredible.
If I have to say, when you refer to TVETs, we cannot underplay the role TVETs can play in our country. If we look at the skills shortage in our country, predominantly it sits in the TVET colleges. But for one reason or the other, I think we need a change of mindset, not only for learners, but also for parents, for society, to think that every child must go to the university. There is just this misconception that my child has to get a bachelor's, my child must do a degree. But the real world of work, actually, a degree is just but an iceberg of what people should do in the real world of work. What happens in TVET colleges, or what has to happen in TVET colleges, is what the real world of work needs. So it is important for us to do a stock taking of our TVET colleges to look at saying, are they really doing what they're supposed to do? Are they producing what industry is looking for? But also, is industry really coming into the party versus waiting for a graduate to come to them? Are they coming to the party as early as at school to inform schools whilst learners are in grade 9 to say, this is what we want 10 years down the line when you finished your Matric, when you finished whatever qualification, this is what we will need. So the question is, do we really project the future of the world of work and careers in South Africa? And that is where I think the biggest gap is, projecting the future. We depend on the now, we look at what is happening now, but as to what is going to happen 10 years down the line, if we talk of a grade 9 learner now, we have work to do.
How do we then, or where do we look and what do we do to make sure that the entire education ecosystem actually, in other words, instead of lamenting the fact that these,
yes,
people undermine TVET colleges, and whether TVET colleges are in fact giving us what we deserve with the resources we have at our disposal, how do we improve the entire ecosystem to make sure that it actually works properly? In other words, business gets to come in and instead of waiting, what do they do proactively, as you are suggesting? How do we improve the ecosystem?
think the ecosystem starts, if we talk of a systemic perspective or a systemic theoretical base, the ecosystem starts at the center, which is the child. And if we talk of a child, we don't talk of a grade 12. So the first step to do is to fix our foundation phase, our early childhood education. The 0 to 9 is key for our country. It is a time bomb. It is important. Let us fix our 0 to 9, because we find children that go to senior phase and even to FET, unable to read and write, and yet they're at high school. So let us fix the head. They say a fish rots in the head first. Let us fix the foundation phase, which is the head. And once we go into foundation phase and that phase is fixed, we're able to go easily transition into the intermediate space. And by the time we come to senior and FET, as it is, we know that our curriculum, compulsory school going age or grade is grade 9. The compulsory exit at grade 9, a child can exit. But if 70 or 40% of our children could say, I'm exiting at grade 9, and you can no more compel them to go to school, can we proudly say as a country that child is ready for the world of work? Has our curriculum prepared them well enough for the world of work? One of the exciting things for me is the 3-stream that is being introduced. Because if it is introduced across and in primary schools, and children already learn key skills there, and industry begins to come in. If you remember, without necessarily saying, I don't know, for your age, but without really selling my age, when I was at school, I remember, for instance, let me take, much as it had its downfalls because it was boy children mostly, there were buses that would take boy children to a technical college once a week, as early as primary, to expose them to other fields. And that is why you'll find professional people now who are adults, but they're able to put their own tiles at home. But our current system, our current children go out at Matric knowing X plus Y, Z. But how do we implement that? How do we measure a tile to ensure that we put it correctly in the house that the supplier or the client is happy with? We don't have. We are missing those skills. So we really, if I were to say in the president's word, this is the real indaba that we need. How do the different sectors of the ecosystem come together to ensure that we all put onto the middle, again, if I were to say, we put in the middle all the needs, whether be the need of higher education, be the need of private sector, be the need of basic education, be the need of communities. We put it at the center and look at saying, where do we then start? Where do we improve our education system? But at this stage, we keep on repeating one and the same thing. We are now talking about Matric results. 2 days down the line, me and you will have forgotten. We are on to the next story of life, and everybody else. And then there are 40% of children who are frustrated. They are not taken anywhere, and they don't know what to do, and nobody cares anymore.
Well, I was part of that system. I mean, at senior primary and at junior secondary, I mean, we were bused to a technical college on the outskirts of the township where we sort of learned those practical skills at that age. But how do we, influence? My sense is that perhaps we rely a lot on the politicians, and academics like you don't get to influence things the way perhaps you should. Or am I wrong?
You are correct. I think 31 years down the line of democracy, but we need to accept the fact that we need to separate education from politics. Let education be education. Let those who have had the privilege of being educationists do what they do. And when I talk of education, I'm not talking about us as professors or whatever. I'm talking about Ubab Mahlangu, who is doing steel work in the township. How many times do you see a primary school or even a secondary school inviting Bab Mahlangu and taking 30 learners to go and see how does Baba Mahlangu eventually come to this gate that our parents put in the yard. So it's those things of saying it takes, the saying that it takes a village to bring up a child. I think we've lost the village. Let's go back to our blueprint. Let's go back to our map and look at the village. The whole concept of us taking studies that have to do with technical work and all that, putting them into special schools. We are creating the scenario that technical work is for children who've got disabilities. It's for children who need remedial work. And you don't think that actually technical work is even for that age child. So it is about changing the mindset of the human being in our country, changing the systemic way of the human being, because the reality is our children, our teachers have got resilience, especially in the poor schools. But we will agree, as you say, you were part of the system of the technicals, that they took you to technicals. But what is the state of the technical schools now in our townships? Most of them are closed. And the few that open, I stay in Roodepoort. The ones that are open, they are in Afrikaans. The high schools, technical high schools are in Afrikaans. So have we lost something? Have we thrown out the baby with the bathwater? What is it that we are missing as a society? Our township children still remain without skills.
Prof, let me thank you very much for your time. Professor Boitumelo Diale from Plaatje University's Faculty of Education. She is the dean there.